All these devout religious followers tell you that their way is the right way and all other ways are the path to damnation. A friend of mine got into an argument with an Islamic man recently who said the problem with these kids today is that they mix too much. What he was saying was that these spiritual people who don't follow a specific God are lost because they're just taking what they like from religions and discarding the things they don't feel like following. He states that the spiritual path laid out by Muhammad was laid out for a reason. It's meant to be taken in its entirety, and you aren't meant to pick and choose the parts you want to follow. And there's definitely some merit to this. If a religion says to not eat pork, but you like yourself a fine Iberian ham from time to time, you may just discard that rule and just keep praying. But you are ignoring the fact that maybe there's a reason that these rules are in place. However, we get a perfect analogy if we look at mixed martial arts. At the inception of the Ultimate Fighting Championship in 1993, it was billed as a combat event that pitted each martial art against each other to see which was superior. It had sumo wrestlers against kickboxers and boxers against jiu-jitsu fighters. At the end of that first event, Royce Gracie, representing jiu-jitsu against 3 different fighters, had his hand raised as the champion. Jiu-jitsu was the martial art determined to be head and shoulders above the rest. Royce Gracie would use his jiu-jitsu to go on to win the UFC 2 and 4 tournaments as well. But then fighters started catching on, and Royce started fighting to draws. Then he started losing. Fast forward 30 years, and successful MMA fighters no longer know just one martial art. At the top level of the sport, every fighter is well versed in jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. A fighter may be stronger in one area, but they are at least decent in each discipline. Anyone attempting to make a run without knowing it all will find themselves in deep waters and drowned out. In sticking to one religious path, you're sort of that one-dimensional fighter who only has one tool to handle any and all spiritual crises. But then again, this is also assuming that you know better than a prophet on what the best path is. The prophet made it there, so maybe it could make sense to listen to his rules. I think the thing we need to figure out first, though, is where there is that the prophet made it to determine if that's our path. What's the ultimate goal of religion? Is it to follow a specific faith? Is it to become enlightened? Is it to enter the kingdom of heaven? In MMA, the goal is to win a fight. It doesn't matter if you use one discipline over the other, as long as you win. You can submit your opponent, ground and pound, wrestle, and kick them in the face. It doesn't matter the vehicle. Anything within the rule set that allows you victory is the path to take. But with religion, we need to figure out the end goal. Is it to get closer to God, to become enlightened, or to make it into heaven? If it's to become a spiritual being, wouldn't it make sense to do this by any means necessary? Doesn't it make sense to use what works and discard what doesn't, like Bruce Lee said? Especially when there are many parts of these religions that were used to run society and corrupt it. Some of the things will actually bring you closer to God, while others were just added in for reasons that literally no one can remember, but it helped out the church. In other words, there is a lot of fluff in religion. You, as a unique individual, do you think there's a specific path for you that works for everyone else? Or are there certain things you'll need to do your own way? Carl Jung, when asked to describe how he conducts therapy, said that therapy is different in every case. When a doctor tells me that he adheres strictly to this or that method, I have my doubts about his therapeutic effect. He continues by saying, a doctor must be familiar with the so-called methods, but he must guard against falling into any specific routine approach. I guess Carl Jung is Irish now, and not Swiss. In conclusion though, it seems that you need to know the rules and understand them before you're able to break them. You must know to what end you strive. You must follow a path before you have the experience to discern where you can break the rules and implement what works for you and what does not. It, like many things, comes down to knowing yourself and discernment. But you can't do this unless you first follow a path laid out by someone else. After that, when you're a veteran, you can innovate and use what works for you.